wonderful, wonderful picture of how Oklahoma will stand tall.
You don't do this for money, you do it for a service, you know, that sense of something that's bigger than yourself.
May God bless the people of Oklahoma and obviously continue to bless the United States of America.
May 3rd, 1999. The city of Moore, Oklahoma was struck by a massive tornado that ripped through the heart of the community, leaving behind more than $1 billion in damages.
250 miles an hour.
I want to say a special word of thanks to the police and fire personnel, the National Guard, the Red Cross, all the people who volunteered, the Young AmeriCorps volunteers over there, everybody who's been a part of this. I am very grateful.
It may be beaten and tattered, but I think it's a wonderful, wonderful picture of how Oklahoma will stand tall.
And only 14 years later, another massive storm had Moore in its sights.
There's a potential for a dangerous afternoon in Oklahoma again today.
There's going to be tornadoes. It's advanced that much nowadays. We can say to them, make your decisions now. What about your kids? Where you work? All those things. Where are you going to be at 3 o'clock this afternoon?
We'll have to kind of take this minute by minute here as these storms do develop as to the particular threat and where it will be maximized in that crucial time frame around 2 to 2:30 to 3 o'clock when folks are out running around picking up their kids and getting things done. It's a busy time of day for a lot of folks.
The morning of the 20th, we made Facebook messages and Twitter posts that this is a day where storms can develop earlier than usual. We're concerned about kids being in school at that time or being on the bus coming home from school at that time.
Worst case scenario is an afternoon tornado when the kids are in school, the tornado's on the ground, moving toward a school, and the parents are trying to get to the school.
You start worrying about not only a tornado affecting a major metropolitan area and a highly populated area, but also potentially impacting family as well.
Jim, if you're with us up there audio-wise, talk to me.
And now we're sent right over to the Midland, downtown Newcastle, shooting back to the northwest, right where
tornado on the ground.
Oklahoma National Guardsman and News Channel 4 pilot John Welsh soared above as the tornado began to develop only miles away from his home.
You just see the storm, it's like 3/4 of a mile, half a mile base, and then once it crosses I-44 and gets in the neighborhoods, it instantaneously doubles in size.
Just destroying power lines and everything that is in its way.
So I was on the House floor at the Capitol. They evacuated us all to the basement, and I'm sitting there watching this all take place. And just knowing the path that it was taking, the people that I knew along the way, the friends, and I knew it was headed straight for my family, straight for my home also.
This is exactly the May 3rd track. Mile-wide debris ball. It is a mile-wide tornado, wedge violent F4 plus tornado. No sign of it lifting. No sign of it lifting.
And I look at the clock, it's coming up on 3 o'clock. We still have 2 schools that are definitely in the area, just by looking, hey, here's where we're at, and it generally tracks northeast.
As you can see, big power flashes there. It's continuing to track east, and Mike, this is fixing to get in a bad area because we're coming right back into housing additions and more of the residential part of town here.
If I ever saw a tornado that big coming at me again, I was not going to sit around and get in a closet or take it, I'm leaving.
Right there. Now this tornado is only about a 1/4 mile west of that road right there, and it's just log jammed right in there. Those people need to get out of there. They need to keep traffic moving. They need to get them out of there.
I was in the process of collecting my 2 stepdaughters with my wife and getting stuff ready to go to the basement.
You're seeing cars and roofs, everything's just spinning around inside or on the outside of the storm. And you just know that these are people's lives. This is their, some have insurance, some don't. And it's just going to be a huge rebuilding process that's happened again.
We left and kind of circled around it and came back. And then as we came back, obviously the damage had already come through.
There are multiple fatalities in the Moore area. If you remember the May 3rd track, it looks like this one may have been about a mile or so, maybe 3/4 of a mile further south.
We had to get back here because we knew we had generator power and all that, and we could get started on figuring out where the perimeter of the damage was.
The tornado initially touched down in Newcastle, crossing Interstate 44 in southwest Oklahoma City, making its way through Moore and finally settling approximately 1 mile east of Sooner Road.
We knew that the possibility of the guard being called was great, and as the Adjutant General, I'm responsible to ensure that all our soldiers and airmen are ready to respond to not just our national needs, but also the needs of the community.
We hope they're not looking for fatalities or survivors. We're hoping that the kids were gone, but we're not sure at this point. We're getting as much information in as we can.
It really hits you when you see the elementary schools.
It looks harder hit than any of them before.
Oh my goodness.
As a parent, this is kind of hard to report on.
Second of
Right
two
now.
schools destroyed in Moore, Oklahoma, along with a huge section of residential housing. If we go back to those shots in the future, you'll see that the ground literally is nothing but mud. There is nothing on the ground.
It looks like May 3rd.
Plaza Towers was chaotic. I mean, just the debris, and then about 1.5 miles west of Plaza Towers is Briarwood, and Briarwood actually looked worse. And from a parent standpoint, when you see kids just running out, they've got debris on their face, they're muddy, and they're just looking for somebody to grab them, somebody to love on them, because they've just been through a huge emotional experience that hopefully they never have to see again. And as a parent, it's kind of tough, and even in some of the reporting, it was choking back some tears because you know what those kids went through.
The radio was blaring that there was a school with children still trapped in it, so I just felt that it was my civic duty to go help.
We had somebody, you know, at the school very, very early on, you know, and you can listen to a radio and just tell by the urgency in his voice how serious that situation was.
I just told everybody at this time, just prepare, and we'll probably be coming in.
I remember that first night, someone asking me, do you need the guard? And I said, yes, absolutely.
As soon as the tornado started coming through and seeing that it was coming through more, I received a call from Governor Fallon.
I immediately got on the phone as I was watching it live and called the Adjutant General, Miles Deering, and I said, Miles, we need to think about activating our troops and getting them on the ground immediately, because I can tell that this is going to be a major catastrophe.
At that point in time, we began the movement of getting soldiers prepared to launch into the disaster scene.
If the National Guard has that capability and there's no other resource out there that the local elements have, then the Office of Emergency Management will contact the Oklahoma National Guard through the Joint Operations Center. We will identify that capability and task that capability based off of what the Office of Emergency Management tasked us with.
Obviously, it was a devastating storm, hit in a heavy populated area. My initial concerns were there would be a large loss of life and a lot of a mass casualty situation.
You know, you don't ever really think about it as much whenever you're at home, but when you get out here and actually see all the devastation and all the people that are affected by it, it really hits hard.
We got with the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, their Incident Command Center, and we augmented their forces initially to help create a cordon into the damaged area and to control the flow around it, because there were so many hazards, down power lines, gas, all of that.
Obviously it's chaos. Again, this is the third one I've been through, and nothing prepares you for that first night.
The night of the tornado, one of the things we did, we took thermal imagers out
and we went through the debris area to see if we could find survivors.
We're here at ground zero, basically, looking to get put into the search and rescue portion so we can go out with the thermal imagers and night vision, see in the dark, and hopefully help find survivors.
We just want to make sure there's nobody here. If there's help we can render to anybody, that's why we're here. A lot of this first pass stuff is really just about ensuring that everyone has been accounted for.
I have family out here and many friends, church friends, and it's just real sad to see your community like this. You don't want to see your community, hometown make the world news in this way.
I had an aunt and uncle that lost their home. They lost everything, and I just try to. That was just like everybody else, someone that we're going to be there to support, and that's the way I looked at it.
I knew we were going to be getting the call. It was just a matter of time, so I wanted to do as much as I could, as fast as I could. I looked at my phone. I had a text message from my first sergeant saying that we had been activated.
We kind of made our map of the area of that command center, which was, pretty chaotic. You got people moving everywhere.
We've had several roads that were impassable that needed to be detoured around. So by having the unit with the ability to communicate that, it's enabled us to maintain our freedom of movement as well as accomplish our mission.
I was right at 100% of the soldiers volunteering to come help.
Roger, it was a suspicious possible loot.
So I don't think of anybody, unless they're not allowed to come, is going to say, no, I don't really think I can do it today.
Soldiers and volunteers from around the nation gave their time, including Oklahoma Guardsman First Lieutenant Roderick Jones, who lost his home in the storm.
You have each other's back, and the family's also part of the military as well. This young woman here, her husband's deployed, so we came to help her out while he's away.
The next day, I'm getting calls from colonels and captains and majors, and people just were jumping to help me.
I joined for responsibility. I joined to help, to be there. I don't think I've run into any negative soul out here. They all have been really positive about it, thanking us for what we're doing and thanking us for being out here, thanking us for protecting them.
Oklahoma has learned how to cope with those kinds of tragedies. Each group, the fire departments, the police, the National Guard, were carefully coordinating because it was just incredible what was going on already.
As power began to be restored, as services began to come online, we moved from a fixed security to more of a roving patrol. Community presence patrols is what we call them. Basically just providing a uniform presence within the affected areas to discourage looters, onlookers, and do what we could to help the civilian population.
National Guardsmen set up command posts alongside the Oklahoma Highway Patrol and secured the schools and intersections leading into the decimated neighborhoods.
That patrol had multi-purposes. It was a security patrol as well as, a presence patrol to let the citizens know that we're there and to provide them aid if they needed aid, if they needed water, if they needed eyes, if they simply needed to know who to contact to create that liaison with the displaced civilians of what they might need.
Part of that aid included meals ready to eat, or MREs, flown in by Guardsmen pilots.
We always, strive to be ready at any time especially our state needs us and anyone else as well.
The National Guard was an integral part of this, and I've seen them out there helping some of the citizens move their trash and debris to the front of the curb.
That's what we're here for. That's what so many of our soldiers and airmen are so proud of is our ability and our responsibility to respond. And there's a great responsibility that goes along with that. And it's not just being there, but it's being there doing the right things at the right time to ensure the citizens that they are being taken care of.
It helps me mentally recover. It helps me to help others.
This is what the Guard is for. The Guard is for helping out the community where we live, close to where we live, relatives and friends. And that's what we did.
I remember when the May 3rd tornado came through, I was living in Bridge Creek, and Bravo 179 was in my hometown helping out, and I always thought it'd be real cool to do the same thing they was doing. I was with them on deployment, and now I'm here helping out my hometown.
Another Moore resident was promoted in the hospital. While working at 7-Eleven, he saved 3 lives and hurled his body onto a mother and child who unfortunately did not make it.
Oklahoma has reposed special trust and confidence in the patriotism, valor, fidelity, and professional excellence of Specialist E.H. Pittman. In view of these qualities of demonstrated leadership potential and dedicated service to the Army National Guard, Specialist Pittman is promoted to the rank of Sergeant E5.
The environment changed from search and rescue to sustainment operations, and obviously the first thing with sustainment is getting utilities up and running. Once you get the utilities up and running, then you can let everybody back into the neighborhood. So we saw that it transitioned to that piece, and then from there it evolved to what I call the more an economic sustainment operation, to where general cleanup started.
We have many checkpoints around here that are monitoring traffic, letting people in or out, and determining who can go in or out of their particular neighborhoods. They're glad to help their neighbors, fellow Oklahomans. That changes things and changes the dynamic a little bit.
General Frank Grass, Chief of the National Guard Bureau, visited the Guardsmen assisting with recovery efforts and provided his immense gratitude to all those involved.
Those airmen, soldiers, and leaders love to see the leadership out and among the disaster. But the fact that, somebody cares enough to be there when you're working, to be there when you're responding, and to recognize your contributions to the community is just tremendous. Even in those dire circumstances, it's always great to see your leadership. As a leader of this great organization, I'm always amazed at the soldiers who like to see you coming, to get out there among them. And General Grass's visit on that day was no exception.
I've seen it many, many times over my years in public service, whether it's been during grass fires, ice storms, tornadoes, flooding, and disasters that we might have, and even attacks that we've had, such as the Murrah Federal Building that was bombed in Oklahoma in 1995.
My mom, my dad, and my stepdaughter died in the Murrah bombing. The only thing separating them from the bomb was a pane of glass. I wanted to be more involved in some capacity. I was already a member of the Oklahoma Guard. It was one of those things where it just like, there's got to be something more. Well, in 2000, when I heard about the civil support teams being created and their mission, I decided at that point that that was a job I had to have at some point in my life, because you never completely forget or get over that kind of loss. You just learn to deal with it. And in us doing that as a family, it's helped us to be able to help other people.
We've always seen the National Guard ready and capable and trained to perform whatever a governor might need, and certainly to help in whatever the community might need.
I think the government has done a fantastic, exponentially fantastic job. You won't hear one negative thing come out of this man's mouth about the way our government responded. I think it has been honorable and incredible.
Seeing the Guard there and seeing the Highway Patrol and Able and the State Fire Marshal there for the duration, not just there and driving through and leaving, but for the duration. It added a sense of calm and started on that road to normalcy, and I think that was a good thing for us.
We picked up other missions, haul missions. We did help people, move some debris or move around their homes or recover some assets. That also transitioned to a protection mission for the President when he came, and as well as for General Grass when he came.
President Barack Obama landed at Tinker Air Force Base and toured the devastated area, including the schools where he addressed the media, leaving words of hope and encouragement for the people of Moore.
Our hearts go out to the families who've been impacted, including those who've had loved ones who were lost. This is a strong community with strong character. We know more is going to come back stronger from this tragedy. Your mayor said that you're already printing new street signs, and I want folks affected throughout Oklahoma to know that we're going to be with you every step of the way. May God bless the people of Oklahoma, and obviously continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
You're helping protect as many people as you can, but you just always wonder what else can be done. But when a violent tornado like that affects such a densely populated area, there are going to be people just under circumstances are going to be affected more directly.
It seems like every year you think you've about learned, you think you've got the tornado thing down, and then the season comes upon us and we always learn something new. Mother Nature always has some surprises and new lessons to teach.
And for me to play an active role and help, just be a resource to help those people recover from that, it was a really something I remember from the rest of my life.
They're tired, but every one of them was like, this is why I joined the Guard. So I think it's one of those refresher thoughts that why we do what we do. You don't do this for money, you do it for a service, that sense of something that's bigger than yourself. And for me, that was, that's why I was glad to do it.
As Governor of the State of Oklahoma, I would like to thank the National Guard and certainly their families for their commitment not only to our liberty and our freedom, but to always be there, always on the call, ready to step up and serve no matter what the conditions are. The many long hours that the National Guard puts in during a time of crisis for our state, or whether it's just serving in our military and protecting our nation. We know it's a tremendous sacrifice for not only the National Guard members who are working other jobs, but it's also a sacrifice for their families. And we are very, very grateful that we can sleep at night knowing that we have men and women that are willing to give so much to their country.